Before anyone asks, no, Big Wheel is not going to be on this list. It would have been too easy. You know, you gotta feel bad for some of the Marvel Universe's villains. It must be nearly impossible to try and get the supervillain spotlight in a world where there's guys like Doctor Doom and Magneto running around. There's quite a few Marvel villains with really cool powers or gimmicks that always end up overlooked in favor of the more mainstream bad guys. Well, I say no more. Let's take a look at 13 underrated Marvel villains that deserve more love. Our first entry on this list is also someone who is apparently in the running for most generic supervillain name of all time. The leader, real name Samuel Stearns, is one of the archenemies of the Hulk. He's the ultimate example of brains over brawn, with his mind having been enhanced by gamma radiation as opposed to his body. As a result, he now has a massive cranium, which he uses to plan out a variety of megalomaniacal schemes. Stearns is one of the not-so-jolly Green Giant's most prominent foes in the comics, but he's never really gotten the love he deserves in other media. I mean, sure, he's had a handful of appearances in animated shows and video games, but he only made one appearance in the MCU before completely disappearing. He didn't even properly turn into the leader. I get that there's some rights issues with Disney and Universal and Hulk, but they're missing a golden opportunity if they don't bring the leader back in some way to match wits with Bruce Banner. The She-Hulk show, maybe? The MCU's got enough misunderstood, tragic masterminds. We need more villains that are just straight up over-the-top evil. I'm talking like cartoon character level.
I'm the Juggernaut!
Okay, maybe not that over-the-top. Imagine having the power to create black holes, to literally create portals to another dimension, and using it to rob banks. That's the MO of Dr. Jonathan Owen, better known as the Spot. Having gained his powers thanks to a freak lab accident while working for the Kingpin, Owen became a recurring foe of Spider-Man. He even once joined a group called the Spider-Man Revenge Squad, or, as the webhead calls them, the Legion of Losers. The thing that's sad about the Spot is the fact that he could be a really great villain. Instead of using his abilities for a big-time scheme that could greatly increase his power and threat level, Owen mostly sticks to petty crime and revenge schemes. With his powers, he has the potential to become one of the Marvel Universe's most dangerous threats, but his problem is one that many other villains share. He just doesn't think big enough. That's a message to all the kids out there. You gotta apply yourself. If you're gonna be a supervillain, go for it. Try to take over the world. What's the worst that could happen? I hope nobody actually listens to my advice. Arnim Zola brings the phrase mad scientist to a whole new level. After discovering technology originally created by the monstrous deviants, Zola became one of the key figures behind the sinister organization Hydra. His connection to Hydra allowed his experiments to become more and more twisted, to the point where he transferred his consciousness into a new robot body that basically just looks like a walking CRT TV. You youngins out there wouldn't know anything about those. Zola's made several appearances in various animated shows, as well as the MCU, where we've come oh so close to seeing a live-action interpretation of his weird robot form, but as of yet, it's no dice. Toby Jones' slimy portrayal of the character is a ton of fun already, and the incredibly bizarre design of his body would surely make him a memorable part of whatever film or show it appears in. There was even concept art for this body to appear in Ant-Man, but sadly, it never made it in for whatever reason.
We were on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
Compared to fellow Hydra members like Red Skull and even Crossbones, Zola just doesn't get enough recognition, especially when you consider how integral he is to the organization. If he appears again in the MCU, I think there's a good chance he could bring about a new era of Hydra, just like how he helped them survive after World War II. Can someone please get this guy his Employee of the Month trophy already? You know, between Doctor Doom and Baron Zemo, it seems like Marvel really loves their evil aristocrats. And Count Lucino Nefaria is another name you can add to that list. Nefaria is an Italian nobleman and mad scientist who leads a branch of the crime syndicate known as the Magia. Despite the fact that he has control over one of the most powerful evil groups in all of Marvel, Nefaria has never really gotten too much love from fans. Count Nefaria's primary power is his genius-level intelligence as well as his vast network of connections, although he did manage to steal the combined powers of the Lethal Legion in the 70s. With a wide array of dangerous abilities now at his fingertips, you'd think Nefaria would have finally gotten some much-deserved recognition, but alas, he ended up fading into relative obscurity. To be fair, a large reason for that is the fact that he's just not a very complex character. I mean, he's got the word nefarious in his name. That's like as unsubtle as you get. That'd be like if you had a villain named, I don't know, like Victor Von Doom. Oh, wait. You know what they say, a Green Goblin's only as good as his Hobgoblin. Yeah, you know, that classic saying. After Norman Osborn's first death, a fashion designer named Roderick Kingsley came into possession of his goblin technology, and decided to continue his legacy as the Hobgoblin. In order to prevent his identity from being exposed, Kingsley has used a number of decoys over the years, including Ned Leeds and even his own brother. There's also a couple other people that have taken up the mantle of Hobgoblin over the years, but Roderick Kingsley is the true OG. Now, I would say that Hobgoblin is actually a fairly well-recognized villain, but I just feel like a lot of people don't appreciate how much of an evil genius he truly is. The mystery of his true identity hounded comic readers and creators alike for over a decade, and his machinations have left a profound mark on Spider-Man. Seems like a lot of people just know him as the other Goblin, especially because he's never shown up in a feature film before. So I'm gonna continue spreading the word of Hobgoblin in my daily life, and I suggest you do too. What if Wolverine was really gross? That's the question that everyone was apparently asking in the 1980s, so to answer it, Marvel introduced the villainous Lady Deathstrike. Similar to Wolvie, she has adamantium bonded to her body, with her father actually having been the one who originally invented that process. However, instead of having adamantium claws come up from her knuckles, they instead protrude from her fingernails. Ugh, is that just me, or is that really gross? Despite the fact that she's faced off against the X-Men numerous times over the years, Lady Deathstrike's just not as popular as a lot of her fellow evil mutants. She did appear in X2, but she was just brainwashed the whole movie, so none of her backstory or personality made it onto the big screen in any major way. A potential appearance in an MCU X-Men movie could allow her to prove herself as a force to be reckoned with, and let her move her way up the very tall totem pole of X-villains. The creature known as Morlun is a member of the ancient species called the Inheritors. They hunt down and feed on totems, spirit beings with animal-themed superpowers, one of whom just happens to be your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Morlun will stop at nothing to hunt down and feed on the webhead, and he and his species have been responsible for a number of major events, including the first Spider-Verse saga back in 2014. Morlun is an incredibly powerful villain, having fought Spidey to the brink of death several times. But I think the thing that keeps him from being A-list status is the sheer amount of lore that comes with him. The whole inheritor spider totem thing is pretty convoluted, and if you ask me, it lessens the Wallcrawler as a character. Instead of him being just an ordinary kid who had a once-in-a-lifetime crazy thing happen to him, he's instead the product of some mysterious conspiracy passed down for generations. That's just far too complicated and not interesting to me. It's the same kind of thing that The Amazing Spider-Man 2 did wrong. Need I even mention the Hall of Backpacks again? Mary Walker, better known as Typhoid Mary, is a mutant assassin with dissociative identity disorder. While her main personality, Mary, is soft-spoken and shy, her two other personalities, Typhoid and Bloody Mary, are violent and unstable. None of this is helped by the fact that she has the abilities of telekinesis and pyrokinesis, which she uses as a mercenary for the various criminal organizations of the Marvel Universe. Her power level fluctuates depending on who's in control at the moment, with Bloody Mary being the strongest out of all of them. Despite the fact that she's never really reached the top tier of villains in terms of popularity, Typhoid Mary's made quite a few appearances over the years in a wide variety of roles. She's fought Spider-Man and Deadpool, she's a member of the Sisterhood of Mutants, she used to be married to the Kingpin, and she and Daredevil have an on-again, off-again relationship. Wow, Kingpin and Daredevil. She, really knows how to pick 'em. Mary made her live-action debut in Season 2 of Netflix's Iron Fist, and she was initially going to return as one of the main villains of Daredevil Season 4. Unfortunately, the Netflix shows got canned, and she never really got her day in the spotlight. Granted, this version of the character was pretty different from the original comic version, but maybe we would have seen that evolution happen in Daredevil. Hey, you know what? Now that Charlie Cox is back in the MCU as the Hornhead, there's a chance we could end up seeing it after all. Wait, that would make Iron Fist canon too. I don't want that. Forget I said anything. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful wizard of Marvel. Hopefully I don't get copy striked for singing that. I know it sounded just like the actual song. The Wizard is one of the Fantastic Four's many foes, who uses anti-gravity discs of his own creation to try and commit crimes that prove he's smarter than Reed Richards. He's a cruel and arrogant villain who only cares about demonstrating his own superiority, which can lead to some very dangerous situations for everyone else. The Wizard is also notable for being the creator of the Frightful Four, a group of villains who essentially serve as the evil version of the Fantastic Four. He's the only member who stayed on the group's lineup throughout every single one of its various incarnations, and you gotta respect the fact that the Wizard's pure hatred of Reed Richards and the FF is single-handedly keeping his team together. That is some major league next level hating. Wizard's the type of guy to show up to Mr. Fantastic's funeral, just to make sure he's dead. Also, Wizard's outfit is incredible. Not many supervillains are brave enough to wear bright pink armor, but guess what? He is truly an icon. Some would say Arcade is the OG gamer. Having inherited the estate of his deceased father, he decided, as you do, to spend it on creating an elaborate amusement park full of death traps for superheroes. His main foes are the X-Men, but he's also tangled with Spider-Man, Captain Britain, Ghost Rider, and several other heroes. Unlike other villains, Arcade purposefully designs his death traps to give his victims a slight chance of escaping. This usually proves to be his downfall, which you might have guessed by the fact that none of those superheroes I listed earlier are dead. I mean, I guess Ghost Rider is, but that's not what I meant. And technically, Peter Parker died in an alternate universe. It feels like this video is very quickly falling apart, and I'm sorry about it. Arcade's not someone who commits crimes because he has to, or because he has big aspirations to take over the world or anything like that. He's really just a jerk with way too much time and money on his hands. He inherited a massive fortune, and he could do anything with it. Give it to charity, build affordable housing for people. Nope, I'm just gonna use it to build a giant theme park to kill superheroes. Honestly, I appreciate a villain who's just straight up chaotic evil. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I said but. Joining the spot in the category of overpowered villains who definitely aren't using their powers to their full potential, we have the Molecule Man, real name Owen Reese. Thanks to, say it with me now, a freak lab accident, Reese was exposed to radiation and given the superpower to manipulate molecules of any kind. This means that he can break down and rebuild matter, open portals, project energy blasts, possess human beings, and about a bajillion other things. The first time he appeared, Molecule Man sealed Manhattan in a giant bubble, kind of like the Simpsons movie. Molecule Pig, does whatever a Molecule Pig does. Then he got beat by the Fantastic Four after they disguised themselves as statues. It makes more sense in context, but that's still pretty embarrassing. In the years since his debut, it's been retconned that Molecule Man was actually empowered by a group of distant aliens called the Beyonders, who intended to have him serve as a ticking time bomb that would one day destroy the universe. It's all pretty much nonsense, but the point is that Molecule Man is actually one of Marvel's most powerful villains. The problem is that he's so powerful that it's kind of tough to come up with a story involving him that has reasonable stakes and yet isn't too out there. Maybe he could fight the Fantastic Four once they come to the MCU, but even then there definitely have to be some changes made to make him less OP. You think all the Molecule Man stans are gonna come out of the woodwork and be angry about it? I've actually loved Molecule Man for years, and I'm outraged that they're changing him. Like, okay, buddy. There's quite a few Marvel villains who have reformed and turned into heroes over the years, but few of their stories have been as captivating as Melissa Gold's. With various sound-based powers at her disposal, Melissa initially appeared as Screaming Mimi, a member of the female supervillain team, the Grapplers. She would later become a recurring member of the Masters of Evil, and she was a member of the team when they decided to pose as a group of superheroes called the Thunderbolts in order to lure the public into a false sense of security before conquering the world. Her fake superhero name was Songbird. However, this fake turn to heroism ended up impacting Melissa deeply, and she eventually embraced her heroic side and helped her teammates defeat their leader, Baron Zemo. Since then, she's stuck with the Songbird identity and has continued to serve as a member of the Thunderbolts, trying to ensure that the team stays on the straight and narrow. While she has been a major character in several Masters of Evil and Thunderbolts-related stories, Screaming Mimi has never really broken through as an incredibly well-known character. However, she feels to me like a shoo-in for an MCU adaptation, especially considering the fact that they've been building up some sort of villainous team for a while now. Fans have been clamoring for a live-action Thunderbolts, and Songbird would be a fantastic audience surrogate among a group of rough and tumble baddies. The moral struggle between her villainous roots and her heroic aspirations would make her an incredibly captivating character, and she could be set up as a new hero for the MCU by the film's end. The final entry on our list, lucky number 13, is Sauron. Don't get too excited, nerds, it's not that one. The one I'm talking about is Dr. Carl Lycos, a scientist who was turned into a dinosaur after being bitten by a radioactive pterodactyl. That sounds like a joke, but I promise you it's not. It's just comic books. In addition to his, new physique, Lycos found that he now had to absorb life energies from other living beings in order to survive, essentially turning him into a vampire. You're telling me this guy's a vampire dinosaur and he's not in the discussion for greatest Marvel villain of all time? Get out of here with that. Due to the fact that he's, well, a dinosaur, Sauron spends most of his time in the prehistoric Savage Land, but he's also returned to the normal world occasionally. He's opposed the X-Men as a member of both the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and the Hellfire Club, and he's also fought heroes like Spider-Man and the Avengers. However, above all, his greatest claim to fame is this meme. It's a true classic that really captures everything great about Sauron. I mean, if you were a supervillain, would you not also want to turn everyone into dinosaurs? I'm honestly on his side with this one. Also, I know that pterodactyls aren't actually dinosaurs, they're pterosaurs. You don't have to leave comments about it. Who cares, you probably already did. You were probably that same person who was mad about Molecule Man, weren't you? Hey everybody, I'm Matt Sonnack, I made this video, and I'd like to thank you for watching. Let me know your favorite underrated Marvel villain in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to CBR, and I'll see you next time.